This country has been sold down the river by the right wing for their own purposes. This is a Republican Party that has decided they like power so much that they think it's okay to win by taking away the right to vote. They are not American. They could be more comfortable in the Ukraine or Russia, but stay away from our country. This is based on the right to vote.
All right, folks, there you have it. Howard Dean. All that was missing was, ah! I think I do that pretty well. Let's ask Roger Stone, of course, Republican political strategist and former advisor to President Richard Nixon. Hey, Roger.
Steve, great to be with you.
And say hello to Francesca.
Francesca, great to be with you also.
Hi, Roger.
So what do you make of Howard Dean going off the handle here, saying Republicans are un-American?
Steve, the real problem is the Democrats have such a lust for power that they're prepared to win elections through election fraud by making the laws regarding voting so loose that people can vote multiple times and non-existent people can vote and so on. Right here in South Florida, voter fraud is a giant issue. It's on the front pages of the Miami Herald every couple weeks, the theft of absentee ballots and so on. So Dean tries to pretend there is no voter fraud in America, and then when Republicans want to tighten those laws to make sure that only legitimate voters are voting, they go out of their minds.
Yeah, it's pretty wild, and of course this is one of their themes. But you know, as a political strategist extraordinaire, Roger, none of these themes are resonating. None of these themes are working. In the polls, we know what the predictions are. We see what Obama's approval ratings are. So whether it's equal pay or whether it's racist and taking the right to vote away or whatever it is, none of it is working.
Steve, that's because they are the in party. A luxury we didn't have in the 8 years of George W. Bush. The conservatives and Republicans are out right now, and therefore the job the Democrats are doing is the issue. They can keep trying to change, distract from it by saying, oh, it's a war on women or the Republicans are racist. But the truth is they're in charge. We don't have progress. The economy is still a shambles. We're still engaged in a bunch of foreign wars, spending billions of borrowed money. They're still spying on the American people. I mean, look, Nixon only wiretapped one building. They threw him out. Barack Obama wiretaps the entire nation, and nothing happens.
Good point. All right, let's talk about what you wrote about recently to Jill Abramson of the New York Times, or formerly of the New York Times, of course, telling her to get over herself.
Yeah, this is the epitome of a Manhattan elitist liberal who moved with the beautiful people. She was a conventional thinker in every regard. But her fundamental problem, based on my conversations with many, many friends who work at the New York Times, was she was incapable of getting along with anyone. And then we see this phony story that she was fired over her objections to the fact that she was paid less than her male predecessor. And that turns out to be untrue. She's actually, in the last year of her contract, would make 10% more than her male predecessor. So the politically correct stuff is BS. She's a witch who's incapable of getting along with anyone and has an extraordinarily high opinion of herself. So I say good riddance.
Roger, what is your opinion then of her that graduation speech? Do you think she was somewhat playing the victim?
It was all about her. Go back and read the speech. It's all about her. Now, look, I'm going to be candid. I have a bone to pick here.
The book review, right? The book review.
I wrote a book called The Man Who Killed Kennedy, The Case Against LBJ. It hit the New York Times bestseller list. Back around the time of the 50th anniversary of the Kennedy assassination, Jill Abramson wrote the New York Times review for 20 books on the subject, but not mine. That's fine, but my book outsold every single book she reviewed. Because she's an elitist. She's not capable of opening her mind up to anything but the government line about anything.
What do you make of the reaction in the media to the New York Times? I mean, it's kind of fun, right, to sit back and watch them eat each other up. I'm enjoying it.
I love to see liberals fight. There's just nothing better than a food fight among liberals, and that's what you have here. You know, there's a lot of legitimate criticism of Arthur Sulzberger Jr., better known to his friends as Pinch. But in this case, Pinch is absolutely right. I'm glad he canned this woman. He should have done it earlier. She's closed-minded. She hates conservatives. She is an elitist liberal. I would bet you $1, Steve, she hasn't been out of Manhattan in years, other than maybe to go to Aspen. So, she's not in touch with real people. She doesn't understand how real people live. And I think she's made a giant mistake. As you know, I have a tattoo on my back of Richard Nixon, but she went and got a tattoo of the New York Times logo, and now she's fired. Really pathetic.
Do you think the event is going to, I mean, in your opinion, set a precedent for other females, though, within the New York Times in terms of, holding on to their seats at their job?
There are a number of highly capable women at the New York Times, and they don't seem to have problems. Maureen Dowd is one of the best writers in the country, and you don't see a problem. So I don't think that women have a problem at the New York Times. I think Jill Abramson had a problem at the New York Times. And that's because she's not even civil. She's not capable of getting along with anybody unless you're in the demi-monde. I mean, if you're hanging out with her friends on the Upper East Side, I'm sure she thinks you're fine, but she's not a real person.
One more on this before we switch a little bit to Benghazi and the Select Committee. There's the person succeeding her is an African American, which I think maybe has tempered it down a little bit because I think, again, watching the liberals go after this is kind of fun because now they have this other wild card thrown in that, a woman is out, but an African American for the first time is in, so they don't know what to do.
That is so New York Times. So somebody sat around and talking to their crisis management consultants who said, wow, you've got a real problem. You look anti-woman, anti-feminist. The answer to this problem is to appoint a black guy. So, I mean, it's a quota of some kind within the liberal milieu, if you will. But it's not going to matter. The New York Times is not going to get any more objective. All the news that fits we print embellished with a liberal tint.
Roger, wouldn't you say that she's kind of ultimately achieved her goal through this whole event of making her mark as a feminist or a woman within journalism?
I think that opinion is going to be divided on this. Her 15 minutes is over. In a month, you won't even hear of Jill Abramson. She will now go to work for some second-rate publication where she'll spew out her establishment liberal crap from there. Not particularly well written or well edited, by the way. There are hardcore feminists who are going to think she's some kind of hero. But the facts are what the facts are. She wasn't paid less than her male predecessor. That is what's called a lie. And she can promulgate that lie. Some on the left will believe it. But first of all, most Americans don't care about this. They're more excited about Memorial Day. And then secondarily, it's an inside the media story that really reporters and people like you and I are more interested in, but I'm not sure the people really care.
Why don't you say what you really think, Roger? That's what I don't like about you. You're never willing to go out on a limb. All right, we only have about a minute and a half left, but this Benghazi Select Committee, the Democrats acquiesced, and they're going to send members. And I heard Adam Schiff interviewed the other day, and he was asked if this is not an attempt to protect Hillary specifically, and that's why they agreed to show up. And he said no, and at the end he said, but if they want to attack a prospective presidential candidate on the Democratic side, we're going to stop them. So it is kind of all about protecting Hillary.
Well, except for they can't stop him. The facts are what the facts are. Hillary was told by our highest intelligence agencies that the attack on our mission in Benghazi had nothing whatsoever to do with an anti-Islamic video. 4 hours later, she said at the memorial service for one of the 4 Americans killed, we will track down those who made that video. So she has perpetrated a lie. The more recent testimony of this fellow Morell before the House committee demonstrates the CIA took out the references to al-Qaeda. So let's cut to the chase. A political decision was made. Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama did not want to admit that American interests were hit by al-Qaeda only weeks before the election, and 4 Americans died.
Right.
So they covered that up to get through an election.
Absolutely. Roger, I appreciate it. It's always great to talk to you. Have a great Memorial Day weekend, and we'll speak to you soon.
Great to be with both of you. Thanks.
Thank you. Roger Stone. He's always an interesting man to hear from
Clearly.
and to speak to. And Francesca and I will be back, and we will be joined by the Malzberg panel. Who's on it? You're going to have to come back and see. We have a lot to talk about. So come back with us right here on the Steve Malzberg Show. Don't go away.